They've pledged inclusion, education for women, religious tolerance and media freedom, but within the constraints of Islamic law. Taliban leaders also say amnesty will be offered to anyone who worked with the government or foreign forces. But many Afghans remain sceptical, and there have been reports of human rights abuses in other cities captured by the Taliban.
We have pardoned anyone, all those who had fought against us. We don't want a repeat of war. We want to do away with the factors of conflict. So the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan does not have any conflict with anybody. We want the fighting to end.
Al Jazeera's Charlotte Bellis was at that news conference and asked the first question about human rights for women and children.
The Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan is committed to the rights of women within the framework of Sharia. Our women have the same rights. They can work in different sectors on the basis of our rules and regulations, in education and health and other areas. They are going to be working shoulder to shoulder with us. We want to assure the international community there will be no discrimination against women, but of course within our religious framework.
Robert Bride has the latest from Kabul.
It was very significant. I mean, this really was almost like a keynote, I think, setting out the tone and the tenor for the forthcoming Taliban government. I think what we were getting with what the Taliban wanted us to get was the softer, more acceptable face of Taliban rule. And it actually started with, in quite a triumphalist way, quite uncompromising, talking about, in grand terms, about the emancipation of the country after 20 years, expelling the foreigners, as it was put, talking about this being a proud moment. I think actually, given the sudden collapse of the government and the suddenness with which the Taliban suddenly found themselves inheriting this country, I think they could be excused to crow. But very much this has been aimed, I think, not only at the Afghan journalist and reassuring people here, but really beyond Afghanistan, the international community, who are extremely skeptical, even cynical about the Taliban as an organization, with memories of what happened 20 years ago, with more recently the way it's acted in negotiations, for example. Meant to have had negotiations directly with the government of Ashraf Ghani, which didn't happen, although the Taliban says it's not their fault, they were acting in good faith. There is a lot of suspicion about the Taliban, and then more recently in the conflict that we have seen, some of these really nasty, isolated incidents by groups of Taliban fighters allegedly involved in war crimes, which international organizations, human rights groups said should be investigated. So it was really the international community which I think needed to be convinced. So in addition to these very important messages, which we were expecting, about assurances on the rights of women, about maintaining a healthy media culture, for example, although albeit within the framework or dictates of Sharia, and whatever that means, and on who defines exactly what those are. So that's more problems for the future.
The head of the Taliban's political office in Qatar's capital, Doha, is heading back to Afghanistan. Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar led the group's negotiations in peace talks with the US and Afghan government. He departed after meeting Qatar's foreign minister on Tuesday. Talks between the Taliban and former Afghan officials will now be held domestically instead of in Doha.